emerges. Political cow unveils the lies. Behind the screen, wisdom surges, lighting up hate with her eyes. In the shadows, secrets lurk. She exposes, she ignites. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Oh, what? Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cow's battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing light. At every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Political cow, political cow. Political cow, political cow. The beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Political cow. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cow's battle never ends. And in her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. Truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cow's battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise.
What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Let me get my audio fixed up here. Almost got this completely set up. Pretty good though for me. Pretty good. All right, folks. I gotta tell you what. There's a lot of attempts on the Democrat side to shift gears and create a new narrative here. There have been multiple members of Congress that have come out as they're being interviewed and being asked about how they're banding together by the press. And the thing they focus in on, it's not about the winning issues or things that matter to people. I've heard multiple politicians on the Democrat side now say, we've gotten tighter on our language. We're really getting tighter on our messaging. That's looking great. Our messaging is getting really tight. Again, I'm astonished. Like, really? That's what y'all care about? You got tighter on the messaging? Like that's what this is all about, you know? I mean, what the heck, right? It's not supposed to be about who can tell the best story. It's about who can deliver the best results for people. Hey, what's going on, local things? Because so often now, they make the numbers fit the story, and they don't actually look at the numbers to understand the story it's telling people, or telling them how they need to adjust, how they need to fix things. Everything is surrounded around creating a story that makes them look good, and then picking and choosing numbers that help support that fact, right? I mean, it's really a tragedy. And this has been going on for years. We're finally getting to a point where we can kind of call it out and get people to recognize it for what it is. So I appreciate everyone for joining me tonight. I mean, like and subscribe. Where's my text box here? I gotta drop that in here. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. I just want to call out one of the frequent visitors, BTK, from last go round. Appreciate all the gifts, as well as excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. As well as all the others that have put gifts up there. But again, picking and choosing numbers to fit your narrative, and then we'll drop in here and see how it breaks down. And again, it's this scoreboard politics. It's Robin Hood economics. Scoreboard politics, getting everybody to come to some. This is Democrats again, come to some consensus around. Look at the stock market. The Dow Jones is up big time. That's our score. That's your score. You made that happen. We're winning. Look at that. And then you have to stop and think like, well, wait a minute. Am I really winning? Is my life really better? Right? Have things really improved for me? Is this what really matters to, working folks? Is to sit there and say, hey, look at, the Dow Jones. So we're going to take a look at some data, right? Dow Jones is up. Everybody's doing jumping jacks. Well, they were until they lost the election. Saying that's the only thing that matters is stock market. Odd, right? Democrats saying that the stock market is the barometer for how well the economy is doing. When not that long ago, remember they had the whole Occupy Wall Street movement. So you look at what we got out there here, and I'll pull this up a little bit so you can see it better. Let's take a look at a few indicators, right? The one at the very top here, Consumer Price Index. 7% here that peaked at 9% in 2021. Well, between 2021 and 2022, peaked at 9%. Inflation was really bad, right? But you can see that's gone down a little bit. Unemployment rate went down, and there's an uptick here towards the end, right? That's happening. But Democrats claim victory on this. Payroll employment, how many jobs are getting added? You see that's gone down. Here to here. 1.8, 4.1, 3.7, 2.6. So somehow, less jobs created, amounting to a little bit more of an uptick in unemployment. This is where it starts to get fuzzy, right? You got to start looking, well, what the heck is the formula being used for determining unemployment? People are falling out of the labor force. That's what's happening. It's here, let me show you the little formula. The unemployment rate is the number of employed individuals divided by the size of the labor force. So if the size of the labor force decreases, your, that influences the overall percentage at that point. And then you look at the employment cost index, and again, now it starts to get a little bit funnier as you get further and further away from those numbers that Democrats only want you to look at. What's the S&P look like, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones? All you got to do is look at those numbers. You don't really have to look at anything else. And you can start to see like, okay, well, wait a minute. How come the employment cost index has gone down a bit? Like, wasn't there just a bunch of inflation? Shouldn't that have steadily continued to increase over time? Well, it's a head scratcher there, right? All right, so the standard metrics that are out there, like you can't rely on the Dow Jones, you can't look at GDP. That doesn't really tell you how people are doing. You got to rely on some other household survey type stuff. Redfin, on an annual basis, runs these types of surveys, right? We can look at that data here in a minute. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is a very interesting one. This is very telling to me. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Let me see if I can get that up here. All right, Bureau of Labor Statistics has a number of different data points in there. One of them highlights multiple job holders. How many people are multiple job holders? And it's clearly for economic reasons, right? So you look at 2021, Biden takes office, and remember this is post-COVID, 7.5 million Americans had multiple jobs, and then it gives you the percentage here. But you watch, each year of his presidency, like, oh, by 22, another 400,000 jumped on that bandwagon. 23, it went up another 300,000, then went up 200,000 here, right? We just got the January number published. And multiple. All right, the number at the very end of this line here is the seasonally adjusted number, and it's in the thousands, right? 8.7 million. I'm going to call it 8.8 because it rounds up there. But this last number, 8.8 million, significant jump, another 400,000 up. So if you look at when Biden took office to January of 2025 when he left, what was it, 8.7? Let me just double check it. Yeah, 8.8. So 1.3 million more Americans had to take on a second job. So you start looking at numbers like that and you really get to see like, wait, this isn't quite right. Things are not looking as good as they're telling us that they are, right? Hamishish Adamson says these Trump propaganda channels all look the same. Weird. No, I think I'm pretty unique. Go rewind and start from the beginning and tell me what you think at that point. David Sitter, I pledge all my full and grand allegiance to President Trump. Interesting profile image there too, David. I appreciate the comments, guys. Keep them coming. But look, everybody's right now in the poll saying the economy's strong. I don't know. You guys got to tell me. You guys got to tell me what you think. Is the economy strong? Is it working for you? Is this what you voted for? What you wanted? A continuation of Biden, or why is he not here then? Well, we know why he's not here. Why isn't Kamala here then? But the key point here is you got to look and see that a significant number of people, right? 1.3 million people from the time Biden took office to now have had to take on a second job, and that's continued to grow. And so, there's complaints often of like, people don't have time for their families, people don't have, any real quality leisure time or whatever it might be. And I mean, this is the driver. Their primary source of income is not working for the lion's share of Americans right now because of the inflation that's taken place, because of the lack of real wage growth that has not happened. They've displaced factory workers for decades with labor arbitrage. There's an acceleration coming with white-collar workers. Is that in the interest of the United States? Is that going to provide real security? Because again, when they show the jobs data, like, oh, we created another however many million jobs this year, as you saw earlier, you'd hear the Biden and the Democrats talk about it. Did they ever talk about the quality of those jobs? It's always about quantity, the number that are created. They're never talking about the quality of those jobs. How much do they pay? What types of benefits are there? What type of education is it required to attain and, kind of grow in those roles? What type of benefits do they get? there's no real analysis or information around the quality of those positions, you might as well just count them all as, fast food work, because the calculation would remain the same at that point. So it's a considerable amount of trickery. And again, you hear Democrats now saying, and I appreciate the likes and subscribers that are coming through, you hear them now saying, we're getting tighter on our messaging. That's the remark that's coming out from multiple people when they talk about the shift that they're undertaking. So I don't know what to tell you guys, but it's we're not in a good state. I've been telling you guys this for a while. The economy's not in a good state. We do have the best president right now to help us through unwinding this type of scenario. But it may not be an easy one. So, just a quick message from our sponsor for the live stream today. The stock market sentiment can change in an absolute instant, and we've seen that happen before with the various financial crashes and everything, right? Nvidia, recently, investors lost $600 billion in market value, just wiped out overnight. There's no warning. There's no second chances. Noble Gold is sending out alerts to all of their clients right now to diversify their holdings. So market crashes won't wait. They come in fast. They devastate the folks that are not prepared for it. But smart investors, they're already one step ahead, and they're ready to protect their savings and their retirement. So Noble Gold, for almost a decade, they've helped thousands protect their wealth through gold IRAs and through buying or purchasing of physical gold. They have about $2 billion in precious metal sales. Noble Gold is a trusted choice for Americans serious about financial security. And again, it's gold. It's a real asset. It's going to belong to you. It retains value. And right now they've got a deal running that when you open a qualified account, you'll receive 2 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful coins. You can see that on the screen here. Examples of them. So, you got to think about it, right? Are you diversified? And if you're not, when are you going to get prepared? I've been talking about on the channel quite a bit that there is something brewing. We'll look at a little bit more data here in a second. There's something brewing. Something's not quite right out there, but are you going to get hit with a 10, 20, or 30% decline in your portfolio? What's it going to take to kind of diversify and get yourself, some protection? So the next market crash, it's not going to have any good warnings on it or anything, right? So check out the URL that's on screen here. I'll pin it in the chat as well here in a moment. But politicalcowgold.com, it'll take you to Noble Gold's website. They have a free investment guide that you could fill out the form and download. Go check that out. I'm diversifying my assets, and I think this is a great resource, and I appreciate the sponsorship. Great resource for folks. Let me go ahead and get this copied here. Boom. Pin that in the chat. So talking about, what other metrics are out there. Oops, that didn't work. You can't just look at the stock market, right? The Dow is not going to define for you how well the economy is doing for people. And that, if there is a role for government to be had, because we talk about small government, can we make sure that the system is working properly for people, right? So you look at data like this from Redfin. You'll have to excuse the misspelling. The Y is off of year, and it just says year. But take a look at this again. Since Biden took office, right? Things have not improved. It's gotten worse since COVID. The first data point: households struggling to pay their rent or mortgage on a monthly basis. 45% of Americans households. The uptick has continued, and right now it's estimated to be coming in at 50%. Half of the country struggles to pay their rent or mortgage on a month-to-month basis. Skipping meals to make ends meet, jumping from 18%. Right now it's still estimated to stay at 22%, but these are the types of numbers that you have to look at to understand how Americans are really doing. And this is why Trump won, and that he actually spoke to the issues that matter to people. Because while Democrats were just chasing, these numbers that matter to Wall Street and that matter to the hedge funds and to the billionaires, Republicans actually addressed things that matter to people. So if you want to see this, politicalcow.com. Also have the links in there to Noble Gold. Again, politicalcowgold.com. Check that out, our sponsor for this live stream. All right, so we'll keep focusing in on this economic data because it's, I think it's going to come in out of nowhere once it hits us. We're probably going to get very surprised by it. There were leading indicators to the financial crisis. I remember I was an investor in New Century Financial many, many years ago, and just the stock price started dipping, and there were rumblings about their dividend. I just got out. And wouldn't you know, 6 months later or something, they completely went under. And I was shocked. I wasn't clairvoyant by any stretch. I just got lucky with that one, to be perfectly honest. But New Century Financial being the real estate investment trust of choice for so many people at that time frame, going under was just the tip of the iceberg. Bear Stearns going under was just the tip of the iceberg. So much then started to fall through at that point. We had bank failures that happened recently. Silicon Valley Bank in 2023. The Fed jumped in, took care of that, squashed it. But what's the next shoe to drop? We don't have good clarity on that. But in the meantime, what we do have clarity on is that there's more winning on the Trump team side. Tulsi Gabbard here just got sworn in. Let me get this going here.
Thank you very much. And today we're delighted to swear in our next Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi.
Now, the fun thing about this is Pam Bondi is going to do the swearing in, and then I'll show you another clip where she's running to make her own her own press conference for the Department of Justice. So the exchange is pretty interesting. But all right, let's watch this hearing because Trump he's going to take some questions, and we'll see where the reporters take this.
Gabbard, most of you know Tulsi. She's a fantastic woman. Tulsi, I want to just congratulate you, your husband, Abraham, your sister, and all of your friends. A lot of friends here. You have a lot of friends. I noticed that, huh?
I'm grateful.
They were all fighting for you. It worked out very well. Tulsi Gabbard's an American of extraordinary courage and exceptional patriotism. She's devoted her entire life to public service, and I've watched her for years on different shows and everything. I said, she's a woman of great common sense, and, we like the common sense. It's a word that's being used a lot. I think we started it in terms of politics, but it's a word that's used a lot. It's usually pretty effective, too, and you really are. I've watched you even on Larry King. You're very young. I don't know how you were Larry King, but you're very young. But you were, and you always had the situation covered properly. At 21 years old, Tulsi became the youngest woman ever elected to the Hawaii State Legislature. After 9/11, she joined the Hawaii Army National Guard and deployed abroad 3 times and highly respected by everybody. So many people writing in letters saying she was so exceptional even then. She continues to serve as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, and Tulsi also served 4 terms in the United States House of Representatives, where she was a member of the House Armed Services Committee. She is a former vice chair of the National Democratic Party. Can you believe that? And here she is. That's very nice. We have a few of them. but she was never a Democrat. She was, at heart, she was a Republican. I watched her, and was a 2020 Democrat candidate for president of the United States. It's not easy, right? It's not so easy. People think it's easy. It's not easy. Throughout her service, Tulsi has always distinguished herself as a leader of the highest caliber. She's earned the respect and admiration and love of Americans on both sides of the aisle as her profound commitment to the values that keep us free, and she really does have those values as much as anybody. In recent years, Tulsi has been a courageous and often lonely voice speaking out against radical left's attacks on free speech and the dangers of an unelected deep state. And I have to say, she was very, very strong for me when I was going through all of the fake news and all of the problems that we had with some very sick people. She was always out there. Before I really knew her as well, she was out there defending me, so I appreciated that, Tulsi. But the threat of a warmongering military-industrial complex and the weaponization of government and governmental people that go out and persecute. They like to persecute people that are innocent. Tulsi herself became a target of that weaponization when she was outrageously placed on a suspected terrorist watch list by the Biden regime. It's a very evil regime after criticizing their appalling abuses of power. And I'm confident that as director of the National Intelligence, Tulsi will work tirelessly to keep America safe. And she's been doing that her entire career. I think it's going to be a very natural day for you when you walk in. It's just have to keep the way you are. Just stay the way you are. She'll be clear-eyed and she'll be focused on the threat of radical Islamic terrorism and lots of other threats, too, threats from within, and give no quarter to America's foreign enemies. At the same time, I'm entrusting Tulsi with the responsibility of overseeing urgently needed reforms to the U.S. intelligence community to protect the rights and the civil liberties of all Americans. She'll provide the American people with transparency, eliminate corruption, shrink the bloated bureaucracy, and restore honesty, integrity, and trust to the national security state. There's only one thing I can say, that there's nobody like her for this job. This was a very easy one for me. She was recommended by some of the top people in that world. It's a little world, you know. It's a little smart world. It sometimes can be an evil world when the wrong people are there, but we have the right one. She's had so many great recommendations. I would say Pam was right up there with her, Pam Bondi. She had a lot of I know her a little bit better, and you're doing a fantastic job after about 3 or 4 days, right? You've had a lot of experience, but you've never seen anything like this, Pam. But you're going to do fantastic as the Attorney General, fantastic. So thank you and congratulations. We did this with Pam a few days ago, and this is again my honor. So congratulations to Tulsi, and I think Pam is going to administer the oath, and when she does that, I'll sign your new certificate. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Please place your left hand on the Constitution and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I, Tulsi Gabbard, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
That's great. Thank you. Congratulations. It's a big deal. Thank you. Okay. How is the Oval Office looking? A little different look, right? It's the Oval Office.
Easy.
Yeah, we'll get a good one here.
And here we go again too. Trump getting business done, it being on display. I mean, this is like shocking behavior compared to the past 4 years, where the best hours of the day to catch the president were between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And now all of a sudden we have somebody that doing swearing, these ceremonies to swear in his cabinet, signing executive orders, taking questions from reporters, updating people on policy, making decisions, meeting with foreign dignitaries. It's bizarre. It's like he's packed in, a whole year's worth of activity in just 3 weeks here now. I mean, just think about how much effort, how many things are going to actually get done here.
Okay, not bad. Ready? I'll stand up there. I think we'll do it right here. Come on over here, Abraham. Okay, I'm sure there are no questions.
That was pretty good. I set them up for that one. I got to rewind it. He totally set them up.
You know what? I'd like to have Tulsi say a few words first, and we could answer a couple of questions. Okay. Here, Abraham. Okay, not bad. Ready? I'll stand up there. I think we'll do it right here. Come on over here, Abraham. Okay, I'm sure there are no questions.
You know
what? I'd like to have Tulsi say a few words first, and we could answer a couple of questions. Okay? Good. That's good.
Mr. President, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for the trust that you have placed in me to fulfill this critical position as Director of National Intelligence at any time, but specifically during this time. Unfortunately, the American people have very little trust in the intelligence community, largely because they've seen the weaponization and politicization of an entity that is supposed to be purely focused on ensuring our national security. So I look forward to being able to help fulfill that mandate that the American people delivered to you very clearly in this election, to refocus our intelligence community by empowering the great patriots who have chosen to serve our country in this way, and focus on ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. As you've said, Mr. President, this is what I've dedicated my life to, and it is truly humbling to be in this position, to serve in your administration, help to rebuild that trust, and ultimately to keep the American people safe. Last thing I'll mention, that in your National Prayer Breakfast speech, you made a statement about your legacy of wanting to be remembered as a peacemaker. I know that I can speak for many of my fellow service members who are here today, veterans, Medal of Honor recipients, how deeply that resonates with us. For those who volunteer to put their lives on the line when duty calls, but to have a President and Commander-in-Chief who recognizes the cost of that sacrifice and ensuring that war is the last resort, not the first. So thank you for your leadership on behalf of my friends here and all who wear the uniform. We're grateful. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. President, when and where do you plan on meeting with Vladimir Putin, and were there any preconditions?
No, we had a great call, and it lasted for a long time, over an hour this morning. I also had with President Zelensky a very good call after that. And I think we're on the way to getting peace. I think President Putin wants peace, and President Zelensky wants peace, and I want peace. I just want to see people stop getting killed. We're very far away from that particular war, but that's a vicious war. Probably 1.5 million soldiers killed in a short period of time. I've never seen anything. I have pictures that are, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe what you have to look at. Young, beautiful soldiers that are just being decimated. And it would be nice to end it immediately. But we had a very good talk with, people didn't really know what President Putin's thoughts were, but I think I can say with great confidence he wants to see it ended also. That's good. And we're going to work toward getting it ended and as fast as possible. It's a horrible situation going over. It's flat land, and the bullet goes off, and the only thing it can hit is a body, a human body, a young human body. And they're losing just tremendous numbers of mostly soldiers. The cities and towns have been largely demolished. It's a shame what's happened to that country. It would have never happened if I were president. That I can tell you. Would have never happened. It's to look at that. And October 7th would have never happened either, by the way, the Middle East. But we'll get it. I think we'll get it. We'll get something done. We're going to be meeting. Actually, tomorrow they're meeting in Munich, as you know, and we're going to have some other meetings. And I'll be dealing with President Putin largely on the phone, and we ultimately expect to meet. In fact, we expect that he'll come here, and I'll go there, and we're going to meet also probably in Saudi Arabia the first time. We'll meet in Saudi Arabia, see if we can get something done. But we want to end that war. That war is a disaster. It's a really bloody, horrible war.
You said in Saudi Arabia, the first meeting will happen.
I think so. We think we're going to probably meet in Saudi Arabia the first meeting. Hasn't been set, but not too distant future.
Can you also be part of that meeting?
We both understand, we know the Crown Prince, and I think it'd be a very good place to meet.
So it sounds like that would just be a meeting between you and Putin and perhaps the Crown Prince, but not President Zelensky?
Probably we'll have a first meeting, and then we'll see what we can do about the second meeting.
Commit to go to Ukraine?
What about Ukraine?
Did you commit to go to Ukraine?
No, I haven't. I haven't committed to go to Ukraine. I would think about going. Yeah, I'd think about it. No problem.
Say today, Mr. President, that they receive your vision. What is your plan to end this war? Like today, Secretary.
Well, I'm not going to tell you my plan. I can just tell you we've made a lot of progress. This should have been done by Biden, not by me, because this has been going on for now a long time, years, and it should have been done by Biden.
Yeah, we got John Mullen in the chat saying coward, and I hate to call people names, but Biden really didn't really demonstrate a lot of courage in many of the actions or approaches he took. A lot of it was just interns feeding him information that he then just regurgitated as best he could, given the state that he was in.
Just like the young gentleman that I brought home yesterday after 2 weeks. We worked on it for 2 weeks. He was a fine man, and he was in there for 3.5, almost 4 years, and they weren't able to do a thing, and I got him out. And as you know, I didn't pay $6 billion. I didn't pay anything. We did a trade, and we did a good job. We got him out in 2 weeks. It should have been out years ago. It really should have been out years ago.
NATO membership for Ukraine?
I don't think it's practical to have it, personally. I know that our new Secretary of Defense, who's excellent, Pete, made a statement today saying that he thinks it's unlikely or impractical. I think probably that's true. I think long before President Putin, they said there's no way they'd allow that. This has been going on for many, many years. They've been saying that for a long time, that Ukraine cannot go into NATO. And I'm okay with that. I just want the war, whether they are or they're not. But it certainly would seem to be that most people have said that is something that's not going to happen.
Are you freezing out President Zelensky of this process a bit? Isn't there a danger of that?
No, I don't think so. As long as he's there, but at some point you're going to have elections too. You're going to have an election.
He says he wants security assurances, Mr. President. What does that look like?
In terms of what?
If the war were to end, he says he wants guarantees of security.
We'll see what that means. We have I think when the war ends, one thing he was very strong about, if it ends, he wants it to end. And that's President Putin said that. He wants it to end. He doesn't want to end it and then go back to fighting 6 months later. We talked about the possibility, I mentioned it, of a ceasefire so we can stop the killing. And I think we'll probably end up at some point getting a ceasefire in the not too distant future.
Do you expect Ukraine?
Say it, what?
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace. I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
Why did you decide to provide support to Ukraine?
Would you support Zelensky ceding territory or exchanging territory in any agreement to end the war?
Well, he's going to have to do what he has to do, but, his poll numbers aren't particularly great, to put it mildly. He's got a country where, it's been savaged and attacked. And he's got an army that's been very, very brave, actually, despite the fact that, we've given him, in my opinion, $350 billion. That's what the real number is. You don't hear that number. And Europe has given, in my opinion, $100 billion. And they've done it in the form of a loan. And I have a Secretary of Treasury right now who's actually quite brave. He's over in Ukraine on a train. And there's a lot of things happening around that train that aren't so good. And he's going there to get a document done where we're going to be assured that we're going to, in some form, get this money back, because we're putting up far more money than Europe, and Europe is in far more danger than we are. We have an ocean in between. Europe has nothing in between. You know what they have in between? They have Ukraine in between. So wait a minute. So, as you know, Europe is putting up money, and they're getting it in the form of a loan. And the United States under Biden didn't do loans. They just handed money every time somebody walked in from Ukraine. They just handed them money foolishly. This should have never happened. It should have never started. And once it did, other things should have happened. Other things should have taken place. So we're getting security on our money. We're going to have it secured by, they have rare earth, and they have oil and gas, and they have a lot of other things. And we're asking for security on our money. They've agreed to it. Ukraine has agreed to it.
Does it mean you are not sending any more aid to Ukraine?
No, we are, but we want it secured, and the money is going to be secured.
When would the U.S. stop sending funding? When would the U.S. stop sending funding?
Because if we didn't do that, then Putin would say he won. We're the thing that's holding it back, and frankly, we'll go as long as we have to go, because we're not going to let the other happen. But President Putin wants to have peace now, and
I just want to read a couple of comments here that are showing up in the chat. Greg says, this guy is so full of himself, he'll cow down. I appreciate the pun. He'll cow down to Putin because he doesn't have the balls to handle Putin. You don't negotiate with aggressors who invade sovereign nation. You weak phony. Okay. Ben Smith, dirty clown Trump siding with Putin. He makes America look weak, says John. Putin invaded. So we should just let people keep dying, says Melissa. So that's the dilemma, right? At this point, we're getting very entrenched and involved. And if there's an outcome that can be reached, that things will get settled, there's consequence for not abiding by the agreements, and it doesn't further bring the United States into the conflict through personnel or through continued resource allocation, giving funds towards it, giving equipment in the tens of billions of dollars range. I mean, why not? Why not bring an end to the hostilities?
And that's good. And he didn't want to have peace with Biden.
Was that conversation with Putin?
And you tell me why that is, okay?
Was that conversation with Putin to start these negotiations part of the deal to bring Fogel home?
No, but it was a nice thing that...
Here we go. John, thank you for the comment. A lot of money goes to buying American weapons. It's actually good for the American economy. Logic is not quite sound there. This is a talking point that has been put out there very aggressively, especially during the campaign. And I appreciate the likes and the subscribes coming in, guys. We got up to 10 likes. I appreciate that. So how do they procure these weapons, right? Because there's not an approved sum of monies that have been collected through taxes to pay for this. Even if Congress says yes, do those expenditures, create these new weapon systems and send them over. They have not increased taxes on us, to get this extra money. This is incremental to the existing budget that the country had. They didn't deprioritize something in order to help another country. So where did that money come from? Right? They didn't increase our taxes. They did not increase tariffs on others. They hit excuse me. They hit the print button on the printing press because at the end of the day, no matter what, the budget has to balance. And if you don't get more revenue in from taxation, you have to go to the printing press. And that's been the strategy this entire time. So the idea that this is actually good for us, it's a continuation of printing press economics. The other aspect of it too, of it being good for us, is again the central government taking monies and then deciding, on our behalf where it should be spent. So there's conceptually something that's kind of wrong with that. There is definitely a scenario where you do want to abide by treaties and agreements and so forth, but why not stem off something that could potentially run a decade or even longer? Stem that off, bring stability, bring peace, secure our own economic and financial future for the country. So it's problematic when people just one-off or wholesale say that this is a good thing for the American economy to send tens of billions of dollars to another country. Because anyway, the logic it's not that simple, I should say.
He allowed Mark Vogel to leave. In fact, Mark wasn't feeling well, but he was,
excuse me, guys.
All of a sudden, about 2 weeks ago, he started being treated very nicely. He said they took him out for haircuts. They took him out. They helped him out a little bit and made him feel better, made him look better. And they were nice to him. And he said, I saw something happening. And it coincided with when I came in.
Hey, Richard, calling Tulsi an obscene pick. So who should have been picked
Into office. So that was nice. And he's a fine person. He was so happy to be out. He was there for 3.5 years plus, and he shouldn't have been there at all. They should have had him out much faster than that. Wait, go ahead, please.
Sorry. Sir, just to be clear, do you see any future in which Ukraine returns to its pre-2014 borders?
Well, I think Pete said today that that's unlikely, right? It certainly would seem to be unlikely. They took a lot of land, and they fought for that land, and they lost a lot of soldiers. But it would just seem to me, and I'm not making an opinion on it, but I've read a lot on it, and a lot of people think that.
All right, you're going to do a quick pause there. Hey, guys, like and subscribe. Very much appreciated. I'm going to bring in something else into the mix here. Let me see if we got it good here. So Zelensky was recently interviewed. I don't remember who the actual press source was, but during that interview, he was questioned on the expenditures of the monies that we sent over, and he indicated that a significant sum, he never saw a penny of it. He only saw a fraction of what went over there. So check this out. See if we get to it pretty quick.
Our top focus on gravitas, one of the countries that is deeply dependent on American aid. We're talking about Ukraine. It cannot account for roughly $200 billion in U.S. aid. You heard that right. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reportedly said that he has no idea where most of the $200 billion in American aid went. Zelensky has reportedly said Washington has provided Kiev with just over $75 billion in military and other aid. He added that he has no idea where U.S. President Donald Trump's estimate of $200 billion came from.
All right, so just right there off the bat, there's 125 billion missing at this point, 124 billion missing. They should go on to show the actual interview here. Let me see. Do they? No, this one's just reporting out on it. So there's, oh, it's the same lady.
This is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reportedly said.
Well, anyway, I'll close it out. But there's many reports that have come out from different networks. There's actual sit-down interview. I'm sure I could find it here, but not the complete focus I want to go towards. Where did the money go to, right? I mean, that's another whole problem. Is it on our side that went missing? Is it on Zelensky's side? Is it? I don't know. But he's putting his hands up in the air. He being Zelensky, saying like, "Hey, look, you guys are saying there's 200 billion that floated over here. I only saw 75. So hey, don't look at me. You got to look at your own house to see where that extra 125 or 124 went."
That's unlikely. Some of it will come back. I think some of it will come back. Yeah, some of that land will come back.
These are ultimately going to Russia.
Who are you with?
Me.
Yeah.
AFPs.
You who?
AFP, Agence France Presse.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you, the things that the Secretary of Defense was talking about, the 2014 borders and the lack of NATO membership. Ultimately, these are both demands that Russia has made in the past. Is there not a danger of handing Russia a kind of win on this?
Well, I think that if you look at the war, the way the war is going, you'll have to make your own determination. I'm just here to try and get peace. I don't care so much about anything other than I want to stop having millions of people killed. Last night, Kiev got hit very, very hard. I want to see people stop getting killed. That war is ridiculous. It should have never happened, and it would have never happened. Yeah, a couple of more questions.
Maybe I should, Richard, I'm just reading through the chat. Maybe I should create a segment just for finding a polite moment in politics. I don't know. We'll see. Does that get views? I don't know if anyone gives that many views.
Are you planning to sign an executive order of reciprocal tariffs, sir?
Yes, I am. In fact, I may do it today, and if I do it today, I could almost do it right now. Would you like me to talk about it now? I don't want to take anything away from this young lady's day, because this is her day, and I may do it later on, or I may do it tomorrow morning, but we'll be signing reciprocal tariffs. The world has taken advantage of the United States for many years. They've charged us massive tariffs that we haven't charged them. And as you know, I just did something on steel and aluminum, 25%. And that'll go up at some point, but 25%, which will level the playing field quite a bit. I did it previously 50%, and Obama was very weak, and Biden was even weaker on steel. The steel was just absolutely, it really started with Obama. The world really took advantage of us, and then that morphed into Biden. And what they did was he was so worried about trying to attack his political opponent that he didn't know what he was doing with respect to countries taking advantage. He should have looked at the countries, both friend and foe, taking advantage of us. So we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs, which is whatever they charge, we charge, very simply. But we're going to be...
Considering exemption, talk about widespread fraud and abuse.
Oh, yeah, tremendous fraud. There's tremendous fraud. And it's hard to believe that you can have that kind of fraud. You're talking about are you talking about what? Wait. Which are you talking? You're talking about with regard...
You're asking me to prove where the 125 went. I'm going to defer to Doge and allow them to inform us once they get there.
To all of the investigations that are going on about this stupidity. What we're going to do is tomorrow I'm having a news conference. I'm going to read to you some of the names that hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars have been given to. And if you tell me that we should be giving money to those things, those entities, I think you'll probably have to leave as a reporter because you're not very talented. When you look at the kind of money, billions and billions of dollars being thrown away illegally, and there's no chance. I mean, I say it in front of our Attorney General. There's no chance that there's not kickbacks or something going on. When you give millions and millions of dollars to somebody that stands to look at something for 15 minutes and walks away with millions of dollars, that money's coming back in some form. And that's only one form of corruption. The biggest thing is what they do to our country. They're taking massive amounts of money and spending it on items. I went through a list of 200 expenditures that were made. And I found 3 that looked like they were reasonable. Okay, 3. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow. We have a lot of stuff. And I want to commend Elon because he's done a fantastic. He doesn't need this. You know, he's abused by you people every day. He's found more things than anybody could find. I think he's got the credibility to do it. I know he does. And it's his group of people. You know, they started off with 12. I call them 12 geniuses. They started off with 12, and they went to 20 and 25, and now they're up to almost 100. People are joining to help them because there's a massive fraud that's taken place. And then you have judges that are activists, and they sit there and they say, oh, as an example, $59 million going to a little small group in New York City. You get nothing going to North Carolina to help nothing. They say, we don't have any money because they've given it away on the border. But you have nothing. What they did to North Carolina is a shame. And then they sent $59 million to New York City for a hotel for a little bit of what they've done. A hotel that was not luxury, that's getting luxury rates for migrants, where they're making a fortune. And we catch them. But a judge says, well, even though it may be a fraud, you have to send the money in anyway. Send the money. I said, wait a minute. We have money that shouldn't go because we caught it before it was sent out, but they want the money to go anyway. And I think you're going to have a lot of things to look at, Pam. I really do. What's going on with this whole thing? And this is just one group. We haven't talked about Department of Education. We haven't talked about the military. We haven't talked about a lot of things that are very big. And what's happened is, as an example, you'll have cases where you have a 3-month contract, and maybe the guy that signs the contract leaves. Maybe he gets rich. All of a sudden he leaves for that reason. But you have a 3-month contract, and maybe he leaves. So the contract is sitting there, and the people signing the checks don't know it's 3 months, and it goes on for years. The 3 months turns out to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Just goes on forever. And the guy on the other side of the contract just keeps getting check after check after check because Elon had an expression yesterday, because nobody cares. It's a great expression. Nobody cares. The guy that signed the contract didn't care. Maybe there, may not be there, maybe crooked. Who knows? But you have to care. Otherwise, you can't really run a thing like that, or you can't run a country, really. Because there's so many transactions, thousands and thousands of transactions. And if you don't have people that care, you're going to lose control. And that's what's happened. And we've caught it. Now, what we caught is billions and billions of dollars, but it's a tiny fraction of the real number. Because you can never catch the real number because people have gotten away with tremendous amounts of money. But I said we have to make our government smaller, more efficient, more effective, and a lot less expensive. And we could find $1 trillion, but we're being hindered by courts where they file in certain courts where it's very hard to win. And a judge will stop us, and a judge will say that it doesn't make any difference what you find. You just keep paying the money. That's a hell of a way to be. And I follow the courts. I have to follow the law. All it means is that we appeal. But that gives people time to cover their tracks, and that's what they do. So it's a very bad thing that's taking place. But hopefully, if the courts, the courts will be fair. They don't have to be very fair. They just have to be a little bit fair because this is so egregious what's taken place. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Nobody's seen numbers like this. These are massive numbers. $9 million for somebody to go and stand in a store and see how people shop. Okay? I mean, you take a look at these things. It's a disgrace. And then you have a country that we want to make America great again. It's very hard to make America great again when you have things like this. And you're going to see the same thing. Department of Education is going to be a disaster. The military, I mean, I see it. Look, I came in, they had a contract done, as you know, for $5.7 billion for airplanes. It was Air Force One with Boeing. 5.7, I got it down to $4 billion, little less than that, 1 penny less than that. $3,999,999 and 99 cents. I said, has to have a 3 in front of it because I wouldn't sign the contract for $5.7 billion. I was able to cut $1.7 billion off the price. And it didn't take me long. $1.7 billion. If people would care, they'd be able to do that with every single contract that's put before them. And we wouldn't have deficits, would have nothing but a tremendously low-taxed, wonderful country. But they have to care. And speaking of that, you know, Boeing, we're not happy with the service we're getting in terms of those planes. They would like to get more money. We're not happy about that whole thing. We signed a very strong contract. I signed a guaranteed maximum contract, which they haven't seen in a long time. And they're saying they're getting hurt by it. But they have to produce the product, and we expect them to produce the product. They have to produce the product. They agreed to build planes at a certain price. They're not used to that. They're used to having time and material contracts where it's whatever it costs, time and material, no dates, no anything, and it ends up costing $5.
So these are important things, right? The time and material versus the fixed price type of agreements. Nobody is really looking at it from a true commercial standpoint, how they can do things effectively. There's no incentive for the government to do things effectively. In fact, a lot of times you hear many of the budget holders in the government, the middle and upper leadership, go by the use it or lose it policy that, hey, we're getting to the end of the fiscal year. I still have, $80 million left. Let's figure out what we need to spend this on. Instead of saying like, nah, we don't, we're good. We're providing all the services at a very high quality and we don't need that additional funding. Let's just return that to the Treasury. You never hear that kind of stuff. Because right now the Social Security tax is not bringing in the revenue that's being paid out in Social Security benefits, right? And so you start walking down the things that actually matter in the government, aside from some of the waste that they've been talking about recently. And there's a mismatch. And nobody for decades has addressed this. They've allowed it to perpetuate the existing programs, and they've added on. And we're in the current state that we are. So 75,000 people have elected to take the severance package that Trump has offered, and they're beginning to do layoffs now as well in the government. I mean, USAID, they're down to 20-ish people now that work for that part of the government. I don't know. Is that right? Maybe they need to up it to 40, but that's still well below the hundreds and hundreds of people that worked for the organization previously.
5 times more. You look at some of the ships that have been built. Take a look at the Gerald Ford, the aircraft carrier, the Ford. It was supposed to cost $3 billion. It ends up costing like $18 billion. And they make, of course, all electric catapults, which don't work. And they have all magnetic elevators. They lift up 25 planes at a time, 20 planes at a time. And instead of using hydraulic, like on track.
Yeah, in the past, Melissa, looking at your comment, in the past they did take from Social Security, even though there's a separate tax line item for us on our paychecks that says Social Security. There's not a direct guarantee that money has to have been spent in paying out Social Security benefits. And so there was a surplus historically for Social Security, and that's why Al Gore famously said, I'm going to create a lockbox to keep it safe. Way back in the day. I'm old, so I remember that stuff. But now there's no need for a lockbox because it doesn't actually collect enough revenue to make ends meet. They pay out more And it's just the nature of the changing demographics. When Elon and others talk about, the population, the birth rate challenges that are happening in the country, it exacerbates problems like that. How do you sustain the model? The model was always intended to have steady growth in population to sustain some of these programs. And now things are kind of turning upside down. People are leaving the workforce too. How do you get more people back in the workforce to help contribute towards this stuff? Hint, the answer is not immigration.
That can handle anything from hurricanes to lightning to anything. They use magnets. It's a new theory. Magnets are going to lift the planes up, and it doesn't work. And they had billions and billions of dollars of cost overruns. I met the architect. I said, have you designed a ship before? This is one of the biggest ships in the world. It's like landing at LaGuardia Airport. But you look at the kind of waste, fraud, and abuse that this country is going through, and we have to straighten it out. We have great people going into the military in terms of we need ships, we need a lot of things. We have great people we have business people going in. But when you look at what's happened to our purchasing, and when you look at the USAID, when you look at the things that they're giving to them, the billions of dollars that they're giving to, and it doesn't make sense. It is interesting that when you're looking for fraud, you look at items, hundreds of items, and you'll find one or two, maybe, if you're lucky. Here's something where you look at data, and they're all fraudulent. By just looking at the topic, they're all fraudulent, except it's the opposite. You'll find one or two that's like a
quick point for, is that Mel? My goodness. Mel Ilou. Hopefully I said that right. Musk is not drawing a salary. He's a special employee. I don't remember the exact designation, but he's not getting paid for this stuff.
Legitimate reason. So I just want to thank Elon for going through it. I want to thank all the people that are working with him. We have a big group of people. I think the lowest IQ is about 160. That's very high. I think you have a couple of 182s in there, but they're doing a fantastic job. He doesn't need it, and they don't need it, but we're showing things, and it's going to be it's a big. People have no idea how important it is. Yeah.
So how soon do you want the Department of Education to be closed?
Oh, I'd like it to be closed immediately. Look, the Department of Education's a big con job. We're ranked, so they rank the top 40 countries in the world. We're ranked number 40th. But we're ranked number 1 in one department, costs per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world, but we're ranked number 40. We've been between 38 and 40. The last time I looked, it was 38, and then I looked 2 days ago, it came out the new list. It came out at number 40, so we're ranked 40. Norway, Denmark, Sweden, I hate to say it, China is.
All right, so I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a website, doge.gov, literally. I don't know if you can see it on the screen here, but this is doge.gov. You go check it out, and they're giving you a paper trail here, and they're putting in more and more data as they go through. So look, you can actually go and follow, like, hey, guess what? 167 cancellations, savings overall 115 million here. It included this particular contract that they're highlighting, and they're showing screenshots of their ERP system right here. They're literally going one contract at a time. I know there's some analytics and stuff they're running behind the scenes, but they highlight this one, like 2.2 million for an HHS contract that's for equity assessments of existing program policies. Equity assessments of existing program policies. What was the outcome of that report? Right? They made like some PowerPoint presentation and handed somebody for 2.2 million. I would love to do that PowerPoint presentation. I would give you 500 slides with wonderful graphics and everything, and then you can pay me 2.2 million. I mean, some of this stuff is just ridiculous because it's not just the recommendation, but then does anybody actually do anything with it? And then you go back to the beginning. Do we actually need an equity assessment for existing program policies? I mean, so anyway, doge.gov. Again, look, 33 million saved here. right? What else? Here, enumerating some more contracts in the single-digit millions. But what's really interesting here is they've got this breakdown, this workforce button. Tells you about the size of the U.S. government. Now, they only have data on the executive branch, but if you just follow the executive branch, rounding it up, 2.3 million of headcount. So when they say that 75,000 have already volunteered to take that severance package, I mean, what is that, like 3-4% of that total? It's a very small sum, right? Total wages, $211 billion. And look, they give you nice stats here. Number of years the employees have worked. A lot of people that are 20 years plus in here, right? Average employees, average number, not average, the number of employees for a given salary range. Look at this. Look at this. The government funds 50,000 people in the 180 to 190 range, 190 to 200. There's 62,000 of them. Check this out. I mean, this is the government. Like, what do all these people do? Are there really, let me go back here. Are there really 5,375 employees making between $350,000 and $400,000? Is that many employees in that salary range really necessary? What are their job titles? What are they doing? So it's you can drill into cabinet level agencies. They don't have judicial branch or the Congress quite yet, but they've built out quite a bit of content here on the executive branch side of things. Anyway, just want to show you that Doge.gov, they're covering it constantly, sending you updates on a daily basis of what they're finding.
As big as it is, it's ranked in the top 5, and that's a primary competitor. We're ranked number 40. So if we're ranked number 40, that means something's really wrong, right? And I say send it back to Iowa, to Idaho, to Colorado. Send it back to places that, and there are a lot of Indiana.
All right, Richard. Richard, I got to tell you, this is Richard Beck. You're my favorite detractor. So he says, real polite cow. I've solved the riddle. You're a pro-oligarch, MAGA-enabling traitor, but so polite. Unfortunate you see it that way, but I am for America first. I'm for American workers first. And that's the nature of how countries operate. These reciprocating tariffs that are being put in place, I mean, long overdue. Long overdue. Why would we not put something in place when another country is creating an imbalance for us, when it's clearly like somebody that's able to kind of manage it? It's not a special agreement or a special project that we took on, like, oh, we want to promote textiles in a very small country, allow them to develop to improve their living of standard. Like, it's okay, let them put some tariffs on us. Like, it's not going to make a dent in things. When the European Union's doing it, other massive countries are doing it, it's a whole different story.
You have a great new governor. You have a great senator that Jim Banks just got elected. You got great people. I'll tell you what, Indiana's going to be fantastic. We probably have 35, maybe 37 states that will do as well as Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden. They'll be just as good. Then you have the ones that we all know about. It'll be the same story. But you know what? Even they will be good. Because you look at New York, you give it to Westchester County, you give it to Long Island, you give it to Nassau County, you give it to Suffolk County. Same thing you go out to, and you give it to upstate New York. So you'd have 4 or 5 sections. You give it to Manhattan. Manhattan's a little bit tougher for some reason. I don't know why it would be tougher, but it is. You give to California, and you go to various areas outside of Los Angeles, and you might have 6 or 7 different subgroups. But generally, like if you go to Iowa, you give it to Iowa. You don't have subgroups, you have Iowa. And other places that do a good job. If they do a good job, they're going to do a great job in education. Those places will be every bit as good as the various countries that do so well. All the time, it's the same countries that are doing well. And so we have a Department of Education where people from Washington, D.C., who in many cases don't care about the kids out in the country. They don't care about the farms and the farmer's daughter and the farmer's sons. We have a massive bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. We have buildings that are all over the city. Department of Education. I never said Department of Education's on all these buildings. By the way, nobody shows up to work because they're all working at home. You know, quote, working at home. They're not working at home. And a lot of them have second jobs. And that's the other thing that Elon Musk is looking at. How many of these people are getting checks, working at home, but they're not working because they have second jobs and even third jobs? You're going to find a lot of them. And those people are going to be fired because we have to make our government smaller. All right, one more question. Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. Nice to see you.
Thank you, sir. Two questions, one on Ukraine again, and then another one on the Kennedy Center. Do you think that as far as your negotiating tactics go, did Pete Hegseth take away some of your negotiating abilities with Putin by taking Ukraine's sovereign integrity off the table by taking...
No, I haven't done that. I'm backing Ukraine. I'm backing Ukraine. Don't say that. I'm approving, but I do want security for our money. You know, Europe is getting security. You know that, right? They're giving their money in the form of a loan. Nobody knows that. And why are we at 350 billion and Europe, which doesn't separate with an ocean like we do, we have a little thing called an ocean in between. Why is it that Europe is paying 200 billion less than us to help Ukraine? Very similar size. If you add up all the European countries, it's a little bit smaller than the U.S. in terms of the economy. Why is it that they're not paying the kind of numbers that they should be paying? And then on top of it, and I've been saying this to Biden, I told Biden, I said, you ought to be asking for either a loan or some kind of a security, like their oil and gas or something for the money, because you're putting up much more money than Europe, and you have no security.
Mono, appreciate the monologic, appreciate the comments there. Tax the fill in the blank out of CEOs from Netflix, Hulu, and Disney. Are y'all saying that specifically because I guess the ideologies that are being pushed on those, or is it CEOs in general? I'm just curious.
Europe's putting up a much smaller amount, and it's in the form of a loan. Because we have people that were incompetent in the last administration, grossly incompetent, and we're changing it. But we change it, and all we do is we get hit by lawsuits from the radical left all the time. But here...
If you guys can't see comments from anybody, there's a toggle at the top that you can switch between top chat and like live chat. I have to go to live chat because then it shows everything. The top chat, there's some filtering that happens. I don't understand the logic exactly, but like I can see Richard's stuff still. But if I was on the top chat, sometimes for whatever reason the algorithm shows only a subset of the comments. So check if you guys see that. That's probably what's filtering out some of the chats for you.
We stand, and I guess we've done okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, again, great press conference. Getting things done. You see Pam Bondi here. She looks a little bit in a rush. Like, why is she in such a rush? Check this out.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry we were a little bit late. I was in the West Wing swearing in Tulsi Gabbard, and so I just came straight back here. So thanks for being patient with us with the delay. We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
Hey, I'll read you guys if you can't see it. Richard Begg's coming. It says, no, you're not, cow. You won't even admit that the president is insane. You don't believe a word of this. Might be missing a word there. You'll never admit it. You're way too smart to fall for Humpty's lofty load of crap. That sounds very gross. I don't think Trump's insane. Sorry. Biden was impaired, and a lot of people didn't acknowledge that. Check out my timeline. I've got a clip of Margaret Brennan, the host of Meet the Press, or excuse me, not Meet the Press, Face the Nation on CBS. And the night of the debate, she's trying so hard to cover for Biden. I mean, just everybody at that point just gave up. Like, nope, I'm not hiding anymore. This is what's going on. We need to take care of it. But I don't know. I don't think there's insanity here. There's directness that we're not accustomed to, that maybe we should change that culturally. There's a lot of directness. He is very kind of brash in his approach to things. I don't care. So, I mean, this is how I look at it, okay, guys? This is my analogy. And hey, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe. More good stuff coming in the future. Is my music going? I don't know if my music's going. That's kind of quiet. Anyway, this is how I look at it, right? The Trump analogy. You need to get some surgery done. Okay? You need to get some surgery done, and there's one doctor that you visit with, and they're like, oh, you know, they've got great bedside manner. They're giving you a warm and fuzzy feeling. And, you know, it's kind of like you're saying, like, oh, you know, they're a very nice person. You know, they it seemed like they know what they're doing too. And then they come to you and they're like telling you, like, I'm going to do my best. You know, this is only like a, you know, there's a 90% success rate, but there's a 10% chance I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'll do my best, though. Don't, you know, I just want you to know what the risks are and stuff. And then you're just kind of like, oh, what the heck are they telling me? So there's that, you know, or there's the doctor that walks in the room like they own the place, throws their coat on the chair, you know, takes a look at things and is like, yeah, I do this all day. Don't worry about it. I got this. And they yell at somebody down the hall, tell them to put you on the schedule, right? They start cussing. People start moving. They're totally arrogant. And they're like, I'll have this done in record time. Don't worry about it. We're good. I don't know. I kind of want the arrogant one to work on me. The one that's like competing with himself to get things right. The one that's competing with himself to do things effectively and quickly and correctly. The guy that prides himself in competing with his peers to say, I've, you know, been 100% successful in everything I've ever done. That's the one I want fighting for me, not the one that is like softening the blow of, I might mess up, I'm going to do my best, right? That's Trump. Yeah, he's arrogant, yeah, all that stuff, but he's working for me. He's going to get some results, and he's pretty arrogant. He's, you know, his style is different than what we're accustomed to, but honestly, I don't really care. He's going to get good outcomes for us. All right, let's let Pam continue here. Get a few remarks from her. And then we've got RFK that just got confirmed as well. Crazy. Stuff's just moving here. Guys, if somebody has not subscribed, please subscribe. We got to fix this number I got on the screen. This is not a good number of subscribers. Please, somebody help me out. I just need one person to push me over the edge. Help me out, guys. Don't make me sit on this number too long. Please. Somebody help me out. Just hit that subscribe button. I got to get rid of this number on the screen.
and child, saying that he was afraid of gang activity in his country. Health and Human Services called him a nice boy, and he showed age-appropriate behavior. That fell so wrong when he murdered my daughter. He ended up in Maryland, where he was able to rent a room in the same mobile home as her. We thought it was a legit company that were renting out these rooms, but it turned out that it was another illegal immigrant who owned these mobile homes. And he knew Walter from El Salvador. He knew him and allowed him to rent a room with my child.
Hey, Richard, you're back. I thought you said good night a moment ago. Let me read Richard's comment in case everyone's not able to see it. It says, you don't want the one who makes the most money operating on you. Trumpy Bear is going to be mad at you. I don't want the one that makes the most money for operating me. I just want whoever's the best. That's all I want. Just want whoever's the best. I mean, I had some surgery. I was very fortunate. I got synced up with a team doctor from one of the NFL teams that actually fixed my arm. You know, it's not... When you have these surgeries, orthopedic or otherwise, things are not 100% as they were, but I mean, I have full range of motion, not expected. Everything's like great. And I just like lucked out because that's the guy I got to work on me, right? I got the best of the best to work on me, and it turned out well. You don't always have that good fortune. Count my blessings for that. But if you have the opportunity, that's my suggestion. Get the best of the best to work on you.
Child. Kayla just turned 20 years old 3 days before she was murdered. Her murderer was only living there for 5 days before he viciously strangled her, raped her, and left her on the floor like trash and robbed her.
Yeah, so mom going through another, horrid story. There's so many of them. There's one awful one, completely awful. So many of them awful, all across the country. One that was here local in Houston too, really caught the community off guard, really took people aback. Some local leaders really kind of trying to do their best to help out. But I mean, what do you do at the end of the day? Somebody lost a loved one. Anyway, I'm going to flip from this session. I thought the interesting part in the beginning was that Pam Bondi was running from the Tulsi Gabbard session over to this press conference. Pretty important topic, talking about, excuse me, dealing with a lot of these immigration challenges. Now, this goes hand in hand with what with the new ICE director is doing. The alignment with the Justice Department, ICE, and Homeland Security overall is, I think, critical in getting these things done. So, what was it? $85 million. They said they clawed back. Kristi Noem said from the Roosevelt Hotel. That was actually FEMA dollars that have been redirected. So now DOJ, because they have access to the systems, can see directly where monies that FEMA are spending are going. And so they see it going to the Roosevelt Hotel and, paying for things that it should not have during the time frame when, the hurricane went through the Carolinas and there's a lot of people in need. So again, prioritization that comes into play there. All right, let's take a look at Mr. Kennedy here. And if you guys are interested, politicalcow.com, I've got all the stream notes that I've brought up here on that page.
It's going to be a real honor for me to introduce Robert F. Kennedy Jr., take the oath of office and officially become our Secretary of Health and Human Services. Just as I promised last year, Bobby is going to lead a great national mission to make America healthy again, and he's going to do it. I think he's going to do things that will really make us very proud of this day. Like his father, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy, Bobby has devoted much of his life to serving his fellow Americans in his campaign for president, and he was a very tough competitor. I did not like it at all. I said, let's get him on my side. But in his campaign for president in 2024, Bobby brought together a coalition of supporters across party lines, and he really worked very hard, and he had tremendous support, unbelievable support, and I think a lot of that support came my way when we decided to do a little merger, and it was really great, and it was very loyal, incredible people. They believe in him so strongly because he's a fierce advocate for the health of our children and for the values of free speech, democracy, and peace. And people are going to be very impressed, I have no doubt. I've known him a long time. He's been a friend of mine a long time. Perhaps most importantly, though, Bobby created a nationwide movement made up of millions and millions of mothers and fathers and young people and concerned citizens of every background who want to end and this horrible chronic disease crisis that exists in America. He's absolutely committed to getting dangerous chemicals out of our environment and out of our food supply and getting the American people the facts and the answers that we deserve. After years in which our public health system has squandered the trust of our citizens, and they really have. They don't trust us. They don't trust anybody, frankly. They've gone through hell. There's no better person to lead our campaign of historic reforms and restore faith in American health care. And Bobby's going to do it. The United States spends more money in health than any other country on earth, but we're growing sicker every year. We're not as healthy as countries that spend just a fraction of what we spend, so there's something wrong. He's going to figure it out. In recent decades, we've seen staggering increases in cancer rates across all age demographics, including more than 40% increase in childhood cancer since 1975. Who can believe that? And an explosion in other chronic childhood illnesses. Not long ago, 1 in 10,000 people, children, had autism. Now it's 1 in 36. Think of that. 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 36. Who can believe that? There's something wrong. There's something wrong. And I think it's something that can be found out. In 2022, more than 40% of children had at least one chronic health condition, and today nearly 80% of young adults do not qualify for military service, in large part for health reasons. Think of that, 80%. Something is wrong, and that's why immediately after Bobby is sworn in, I will be signing an executive order establishing the President's Commission to make America healthy again. We have some great people on that commission. Chaired by our new secretary, this groundbreaking commission will be charged with investigating what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic illness, reporting its findings, and delivering an action plan to the American people. And it's going to be a plan that people are really waiting to hear. Bobby, I want to thank you. You've gone through a lot. It's taken great courage. You've been amazing, actually. I'd call him. I'd say, you're going to be okay. And he said, I know. I really do. He's really been supported amazingly by Cheryl and his family. And it was very tough. It was a very nasty group of people that were after him, but he was tougher and he was smarter than they are. And that's why he's here today. There are very few people that could have withstood the assault, but he was able to. So I just want to congratulate you, and we have a very special person here to swear you in.
Before we get to the actual swearing in, where did that comment go? Knowledgeable King says polio is high in Texas due to, I guess, these children not having vaccines. All right, let me show you what the Google AI is telling me here. So anyway, Google AI, right? There have been no cases of wild, however you say that polio thing, acquired in the United States since 1979. However, in 2022, a case of paralysis caused by that virus was detected. One. It's hardly running wild. So again, news headlines are clickbait. They give you a lot of mischaracterizations. They make assumptions. Quality is not the goal of news anymore, unfortunately. It's more quantity. So, and if you haven't subscribed, folks, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you getting me past the past that one very awkward number earlier, but if you're just joining, hit that subscribe button. More to come here.
And a man that I think has done just, I think he's just an amazing man. As you know, his name happens to be Gorsuch, and he's a member of the Supreme Court in extremely good standing. He's highly respected by everybody. And I didn't know, are you two friends or something? Or did this just happen to be the justice? Did this just happen to be the luck of the draw? What happened?
I reached out to him.
Did you reach out? Well, you reached out to a very good man. So please, if you would, thank you very much.
All right, let's get some RFK remarks here. Oh, yeah, got to do this one again.
This has to be done first.
I'll do this first. Sorry. I'm going to make this a good one, right? Okay, it's good so far. Good. It's a 10.
Go in there. Get the kid in there. Go in there. Get the kid.
It's turned a little awkward.
Over here, please.
Would all the family like to join?
Yeah, sure. All right.
A quick comment from Richard Lusk, not to be confused with Richard Beck, but different Richard. Says, I live in upstate South Carolina. The storm tore my house up good. Vehicles, boat, ripped the power wires from my house and meter off. If you help me, I got no complaints with them as far as me. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's how it should be, right? That's good. Very glad to hear that. I appreciate you sharing that because, we only hear negative stuff usually come up, so good to have a good story there.
Please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
Melissa,
That
I'm
I
sorry.
will support and defend
The Constitution of the United
the
States.
Constitution of the United States
Against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely
Without any mental reservation.
without any mental reservation
Or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
The duties of the office.
the duties of the office
On which I am about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Secretary.
I want to begin by thanking President Trump for giving me this extraordinary opportunity. And I want to introduce my family and thank them for being here. My wife, Cheryl, my cousin, Anthony Shriver, my daughter, Kik, my other daughter, Kira, Catalina Shriver, Joey Shriver, Jackson Hines, and Amaryllis Kennedy. Oh, and I want to thank all of you for your support and throughout this whole 2.5-year journey. My first time in this Oval Office was in 1961, and I came here to meet or 1962. I came here and I had a meeting with my uncle, who was president then, where we talked about the environment. He was involved deeply, as we all know, in restoring physical fitness to this country. He challenged at one point during his administration, he challenged Americans to do a 50-mile walk, which I ultimately did. But I remember the day that my father completed his walk. We were staying up at Camp David, and my father came in after 18 hours walking on the CNO towpath with his feet bleeding and blisters on them. My father had one of his best friends was Al Lowenstein. And Al Lowenstein ultimately was a congressman from New York who was assassinated himself in 1980. But Al Lowenstein had started the Dump Johnson movement to get rid of President Johnson and end the Vietnam War. And at the time that he started it, people just thought it was a fool's errand. And ultimately, he asked my father to run for president against Johnson. My father wouldn't do it at that time, and he asked Gene McCarthy. McCarthy did it, and he joined that campaign. And my father ultimately ran, and Johnson then dropped out. So Al Lowenstein succeeded. And although Al Lowenstein was on the other side now, running against my father with Gene McCarthy, my father wrote him a note, a quote from Emerson, where he said, "If a single man plant himself firmly on his own ideal and there abide, the whole wide world will come round to him." For 20 years, I've gotten up every morning on my knees and prayed that God would put me in a position where I can end the childhood chronic disease epidemic in this country. On August 23rd of last year, God sent me President Trump. And he gave me he's now given me, he's kept every promise that he's made to me. He's kept his word in every account and gone way beyond it. I'm so grateful to you, Mr. President. A lot of people told me that I couldn't trust President Trump, that I better get it in writing. And we did a handshake, and everything that he told me he was going to do, he has done. And I'm so grateful to him, and I've told you before, I genuinely believe that you are a pivotal historical figure, that you are going to transform this country at a time when we see all of the indicia of democracy now in tatters in our country. We see the rise of the military-industrial complex, the rise of totalitarianism, these attacks on our Constitution, and this breathtaking epidemic that is disabling our people. President Trump has promised to restore the American dream in this country. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person only has one. 60% of our population has only one dream, that they get better. President Trump has promised that he's going to restore America's strength. But we can't be a strong nation if we have a weak citizenry. If people are sick, 60% of our people are sick, 77%, as President Trump mentioned, of our children cannot qualify for military service. And we need a man on a white horse now. We need somebody who is willing to come in and has the spine and the guts and the strength to challenge orthodoxies, to stand in the way of vested interests, and to break institutions that have turned against our democracy. President Trump has shown again and again that he is that hero. And most recently, I greatly appreciate it, and I called you the day that you announced the termination of USAID. My uncle started USAID in 1961 for humanitarian purposes, to put our country on the side of the poor. It has been captured by the military-industrial complex. It has become a sinister propagator of totalitarianism and war across the globe. And very few people understand how sinister this agency really is. And President Trump saw that, and he stood up to it with a masterstroke. And we want to do the same thing with the institutions that are stealing the health of our children. We need a revolutionary figure, and you are that figure, and I'm very grateful for you for giving me this opportunity. I want to recognize some of the allies that I've had in this battle for a long time: Senator Rand Paul, Senator Ron Johnson, Senator Roger Marshall, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Buddy Carter, who've all been champions of the MAHA agenda before I even came along. I'm very grateful for you for standing strong. Thank you very much, President Trump.
Mr. Secretary, if I could ask, what plans do you have immediately at HHS now that you're sworn in, sir?
He's going to be running it. He's going to do a great job.
What would you like
That's
to
my
see to
plan.
do first?
Well, he's going to find out a lot of secrets that have been maybe kept from us, but he's going to come up with some solutions to some big problems, health problems, and I think he's going to go down in the record books. I really have confidence. This group has great, even Rand has confidence, and that doesn't happen often. Good luck.
If I could ask you, Mr. Secretary, do you plan to fire anyone immediately, or what are your plans on day one, which I guess is today?
Our plans are radical transparency and returning gold standard science to NIH, to FDA, and CDC, to ending the corruption, ending the corporate capture of those agencies, getting rid of the people on those panels that have conflicts of interest, so we can do unadored and unimpeded science rather than the kind of product that is coming out of those agencies today.
Mr. Secretary, may I ask, how do you address concerns that some Americans may have about your stance on vaccines?
When people actually hear what I think about vaccines, which is common sense, which is vaccines should be tested, they should be safe, everybody should have informed consent, people are reacting because they hear things about me that aren't true. They hear characterizations of things that I've said that are simply not true. When they hear what I have to say actually about vaccines, everybody supports it.
All right. Mr. Kennedy, Kara Castronovo from Lindell TV. What's your message to Democrats in the Senate that fought so hard to keep you from taking this position? And congratulations, by the way.
And President Trump has promised to be the president for all Americans, and he has said to me that he understands that there's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. All of our children need to be protected, and whether you're in a blue state or red state, I'm going to do everything I can to work with you, whether you're Democrat or Republican, to restore child's health in this country.
Mr. Secretary.
Great job. Great job. Thank you all very much.
All right, so more winning there. Signing executive orders, getting things going. The pace at which things move is just, I'll just say it again, it's astonishing to me. The biggest problem areas for approval were Tulsi and RFK, and look, they're in. So now we just got Cash actually waiting out there. Once Cash is in, then it's, all, everybody just running in top gear, just trying to get things done at this point for the next 4 years. How well this sets up for 2028, I don't know. I'll worry about it in a couple of years. But I did hear that some people are pushing for Jasmine Crockett for her to become the Democratic nominee for 2020, which that'd be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, good for me. I'll get a ton of content. I mean, no doubt. I will very much look forward to that. But that's what the Democrats are banking on, and you could kind of see exactly the reasoning behind it. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right. If you don't watch the Daily Press, it's not always an extended in-room briefing. Sometimes it's just like a 7-minute thing that she does outside on the White House grounds or wherever they might be traveling to. But the daily briefings that Caroline Vinette is doing are remarkable, and it's such a huge contrast between what you saw last year and then again coming into this year. The command of the issues and what's going on. She just walks up there generally with, a couple of printouts, probably just some talking points of things that she wants to cover in her opening remarks, and maybe just to take some notes on, if necessary. But she just takes full command of the room, shuts down any fake news, and just, broadcasts the message and the principles and exactly what it is that the Trump team is all about. So here, let me get this thing going here.
House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced that President Trump spoke separately to both President Putin of Russia and President Zelensky of Ukraine about immediately beginning negotiations to
President spoke to President Putin of Russia. They spoke to say
and Russia.
All right, there we go. Finally figured that out. I had the mute.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced that President Trump spoke separately to both President Putin of Russia and President Zelensky of Ukraine about immediately beginning negotiations to end the war between the two countries. She also confirmed an upcoming meeting with President Zelensky and top Trump officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Rubio. The briefing is just under 40 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see all of you on this very newsy day, to say the least. I have a couple of updates for you this morning, or this afternoon. As you know, this morning, the president spoke to President Putin of Russia. They spoke at length, and the president released a statement following that conversation in great detail. I can also confirm that the president just recently got off the phone with President Zelensky of Ukraine. His truth is as follows. I just spoke to President Zelensky of Ukraine. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I am hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and
It is political ASMR, so if you are dozing, that's just the nature of politics sometimes.
totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. I myself just spoke to the president about these calls, and he told me to tell all of you they were very good calls, they were very positive, and the administration is wholeheartedly committed to a peace deal to end once and for all the Russia-Ukraine war. More on that later. I'm sure you'll have more questions to ask. This week, the president has continued to deliver on his promises to the American people. According to new polling that was released at the beginning of this week by CBS News, an overwhelming 70% of Americans said that President Trump is following through on what he pledged to do during his historic campaign. The poll also revealed that Americans see President Trump as a tough, energetic, focused, and effective leader fighting hard to improve their lives and our country. And yesterday, in particular, was a truly special day for the United States of America. Thanks to the great leadership of President Trump and the strong and tough leadership of President Trump, Mark Fogel, an American teacher detained by Russia, was returned to American soil and met with the president here at the White House last night. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the rest of President Trump's incredible national security team helped negotiate the exchange that secured Mark Fogel's release. This event shows a good faith effort from Russia, and it's a sign, as I just said, that we are moving in the right direction to end this brutal war. Malphine Fogel, Mark's 95-year-old mother, was understandably very worried that she would never see her son again after his arrest in 2021. Mrs. Fogel was actually slated to join President Trump on stage at the July 13th Butler, Pennsylvania rally to speak out for Mark. And then the infamous assassination attempt against President Trump took place. But that day, before the rally, President Trump promised Mark's mother that when he returned to the White House, he would bring her son home. God saved President Trump's life on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania, and now Mark Fogel is back home safely with his family as a result. God is good. The president also continues to bring back common sense to our government. This week, he signed an EO to end the procurement and forced use of paper straws. Taxpayer dollars were wasted on these non-functional and massively unpopular products for no other reason than it made radical activists feel good about themselves. And on trade, President Trump continues to take bold action to protect America's critical steel and aluminum industries, much like he did in his first term. And the president signed proclamations to close existing loopholes and exemptions to restore a true 25% tariff on steel and elevate the tariff on aluminum to 25% as well. This administration believes these tariffs will protect our national security and put American workers first. And in the Oval Office yesterday with Elon Musk, President Trump took further action to make our federal government more efficient and effective. He signed an EO implementing the DOGE Workforce Optimization Initiative. Now agency heads will coordinate and consult with DOGE to significantly shrink the size of the federal workforce and limit hiring to essential positions only. The unaccountable bureaucracy will finally be reined in. On another important matter this morning, Senate Republicans continued to confirm President Trump's exceptionally qualified nominees, most recently Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, who will be joining us later at the White House for her swearing-in ceremony. It's imperative that the remaining...
So now you see the mix. This happened, Tulsi sworn in, Pam Bondi's press conference, a lot of things happening all at once almost, it feels like, but this was not the nature of the Biden White House. All we had was Karine, and that was it. We're lucky to catch Biden on his way to, I don't know, to his car or to Marine One or whatever it might be. It was all in passing. Nothing structured, organized, or no desire to really broadcast what was going on behind the scenes to the public.
Remainder of the president's cabinet nominees.
And I'm going to take a quick break. I will be right back, folks.
Are confirmed as quickly as possible. On another important matter this week, illegal alien criminals continue to be arrested and sent home as part of the ongoing mass deportation effort of the Trump administration. Just this week, 2 planes with 190 Venezuelan illegal aliens arrived in the Venezuelan capital from Fort Bliss, Texas. Here are some of the criminal illegal aliens who were arrested in the country this past week. ICE Atlanta arrested a citizen of Nigeria who had been convicted of money laundering. ICE San Antonio arrested a citizen of Mexico who had been convicted of assault. ICE Denver arrested a citizen of Mexico who had been convicted of aggravated assault. And ICE Houston arrested a citizen of Mexico who had been convicted of aggravated assault. Now, before I take questions, I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. And they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts. 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be enacted. So here in our new media seat today, we have Chris Pavlovsky, an entrepreneur who has a strong passion for protecting freedom of speech. Chris started the video sharing platform Rumble in 2013 with a mission of protecting a free and open internet from censorship by big tech and governments around the globe. The platform has always been a place for independent creators to share their authentic opinions, and they have always included President Trump, in contrast to the way he was censored by other platforms in years past. Since its founding, Rumble has grown exponentially, recently marking 67 million monthly active users. It's a lot of users. If you're watching right now and interested in sitting in this seat, you can apply, whitehouse.gov/new-media. With that, I will take your questions. And Chris, why don't you kick us off on this very busy news day?
Carolyn, thank you very much to you and President Trump. It's an honor to be sitting here in the new media seat for the White House press briefing and to be able to demonstrate why freedom of expression is so important. Rumble was the victim of censorship at the hands of multiple foreign governments. It's clear there are still many countries who oppose free speech and even target American companies. Can you describe what the administration will do to protect U.S. interests and values worldwide?
Sure. Well, thanks for the very important question. And I think that free speech and ending censorship, both here at home and also abroad, is an important part of President Trump's agenda. I think first, President Trump has led by example on this front as the leader of the free world, the president of the United States, with his show of access and transparency on a daily basis. The president takes questions from all of you almost every single day and really reveals what he's thinking and feeling, and I think that serves as a great example to the rest of the world. As for tangible actions that the president has signed, he did sign an executive order, I believe on day one, certainly within the first week of this administration, to restore free speech and stop government-sponsored censorship here at home. And the EO made it very clear that federal employees are not allowed to engage in any activity that would infringe upon the American people's right of free expression. So I think the president has led quite strongly on this. And I would just add, this is part of the reason we have a new media seat, to invite new voices into this room. Again, we're going to need to expand this room because so many people are interested, and we're very excited about that. It's a privilege to cover this White House, but we want all voices to be heard. So thanks for being us with here, Chris, and I hope you enjoy the briefing. Sure. Jordan.
Thanks, Caroline. Data out this morning showed that consumer prices were up across a variety of goods, and just before that report, though, President Trump called for lower interest rates. The Fed said it's holding rates steady to try and tamp down further inflation. So how would lowering rates help keep inflation in check for the American people?
Sure. Well, first of all, on the inflation point, we did receive those numbers, and they were worse than expected, which tells us that the Biden administration indeed left us with a mess to deal with. It's far worse than I think anybody anticipated, because unfortunately the previous administration was not transparent in where the economy truly was. We know people at this very podium told the American people that inflation was transitory and that it would go away. That was not the case. And now the last report of the Biden administration, as revealed today, shows that inflation is still about 4.5% higher over the past 3 months. This is an indictment on the Biden administration's mismanagement of the inflation crisis and their lack of transparency in addressing it. As for tackling inflation and interest rates, the president has made his position on this very clear. He wants interest rates to be lower, he wants inflation to be lower, and he believes that the whole of government economic approach that this administration is taking will result in lower inflation. I have said that from this podium many times. The president had record low interest rates and inflation rates in his first term. He believes that the economy can handle it and withstand it. And we're doing a lot to tackle the inflation effort on this front. It's a whole of government economic approach, and I've talked about what we're doing to tackle inflation quite a few times from this podium.
Can you update us on reciprocal tariffs? That's going to come before Prime Minister Modi's visit tomorrow.
I do believe it will come before the Prime Minister's visit tomorrow, and I will let the President discuss the details on the reciprocal tariff front. But this is something he believes strongly in, and it's very simple logic as to why the President wants to impose reciprocal tariffs. It's the golden rule, which we all learned when we were growing up in school. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and far too many nations around this world have been ripping off the United States of America for far too long, and that's why the President believes this will be a great policy that will benefit American workers and improve our national security. JJ.
On Doge and the fraud claims, Elon Musk in the Oval yesterday gave us some information on that. We're just wondering if there's some proof, evidence. Is the White House willing to share evidence of those fraud claims, or can Elon Musk come to the briefing room and share material evidence of what he's talking about?
Sure, I would love for Elon Musk to come to the briefing room. That's why we had him go to the Oval Office yesterday, where I think he provided great answers. He was speaking in layman's terms, speaking common sense to all of you in the media, but also to Americans at home. But I would say especially to all of you in the media, because I think it's a real fallacy that there's this alleged lack of transparency when it comes to Doge. President Trump and Elon Musk have been incredibly transparent on what Doge is doing. There is an X account with the Doge handle. They are tweeting out what they are doing on a daily basis. They have a website where they are posting the receipts of the contracts that they are reviewing and the payments that they have stopped from going out the door. The secretaries of our departments have stopped from going out the door. And I would also say that before it was Elon Musk making our government efficient and accountable, it was some unnamed bureaucrat that none of you knew. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's also now one of the most highly scrutinized men in the world alongside President Trump because of what he's doing and the access that he is allowing. So there's great transparency. As for the actual receipts, we are happy to provide them, and I actually brought some today because all of you know I love to bring the receipts. We have contracts upon contracts that we can send and provide this information to you. Let me be very clear. We are not trying to hide anything. We have been incredibly transparent, and we will continue to be. These are screenshots of contracts that Doge found across our government. This is a DEI contract, $36,000 for U.S. citizenship and immigration services. That is against the president's policies and his America First agenda. This is a $3.4 million contract, a Council for Inclusive Innovation at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Department of Commerce, another DEI contract that Doge identified. I can continue to go through these. Oh, I love this one, $57,000 for climate change in Sri Lanka. What is this doing to continue the interests of the American people? Absolutely nothing. These are the line items across the federal government that Doge is identifying daily. They're moving very fast. There's a lot of paper that we can show you, but we're happy to do it. This administration has been more than transparent about what Doge is doing. And here's one of their tweets that they posted about the mine. I believe this is in Pennsylvania, where the federal employee retirement system is being processed. Did anybody know this was even happening in our country before Elon Musk talked about it in the Oval Office yesterday? A lot of Americans didn't. So we are providing transparency and accessibility on a daily basis when it comes to Doge. And I also have a Doge daily report, if anybody would like it, on all of the things that they are identifying and finding. We're happy to provide this information to you. We're talking about it every single day.
Are all those things you just mentioned fraud, or are they waste, or are they just contrary to the president's policies?
I would argue that all of these things are fraudulent, they are wasteful, and they are an abuse of the American taxpayer's dollar. This is not what the government should be spending money on. It's contrary to the president's priorities and agenda. And again, we can continue to provide you the receipts for all of the fraud, waste, and abuse. And if anybody in here wants to argue that the federal government is not fraudulent in some capacity, be my guest, because I think the American people watching at home would beg to differ.
Caroline?
Mary.
Hey, more on the judges. Does the White House believe the courts have the authority to issue these nationwide injunctions?
We believe that the injunctions that have been issued by these judges have no basis in the law and have no grounds, and we will, again, as the president said very clearly yesterday, comply with these orders, but it is the administration's position that we will also ultimately be vindicated, and the president's executive actions that he took were completely within the law. They were constitutional, and we look forward to the day where he can continue to implement his agenda. And I would just add, it's our view that this is the continuation of the weaponization of justice that we have seen against President Trump. He fought it for 2 years on the campaign trail. It won't stop him now. Brian.
Yes. I want to go back to DOGE just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marjorie Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments to Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some of this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that DOGE is identifying on a daily basis. Elon Musk also talked about yesterday about Social Security payments that are going out the door for people who are no longer with us, unfortunately. I would say that is certainly fraud. There's also a lot of contracts they've identified that, just as a hypothetical example, are $1 million, but only 500,000 went out the door. So where's the rest of that cash? And so that's the thing. Those are the things that DOGE is working on every single day. And I would just remind everybody in this room, this is what President Trump campaigned on doing. He's delivering on a promise that 77 million people elected him to do. James.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Two foreign policy questions, if I may.
Sure.
First, the statement that was released after this morning's phone calls identified Mr. Witkoff as the special envoy who will be part of the delegation that undertakes to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war. I had thought that that individual was General Kellogg, and so can you clear that up?
Sure, I'd be happy to. As you mentioned, the president, in his truth, following the phone call with Vladimir Putin, said that he has asked Secretary of State Rubio, the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, our national security advisor here at the White House, Michael Watts, and Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations. As for General Keith Kellogg, he remains a critical part of this team in this effort. He's played a tremendous role in getting the negotiations to this point, and he's very much still part of the Trump administration.
Subject is Iran. I took note of President Trump's comments in his Super Bowl interview with our colleague Bret Baier to the effect that he wants to do a deal with Iran. However, that interview appeared after the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had already ruled out any additional negotiations with the United States. So kind of a two-part question. A, what gives the president any confidence that Iran will come to the table? And B, more fundamentally, why is the president interested in doing a deal with Iran instead of doing everything he can, perhaps short of U.S. military intervention, to try and hasten the end of what many of his own supporters regard as an evil regime?
Well, the president has made it very clear that he will never allow Iran to have nuclear capabilities. That is a red line that he has drawn, and he will not allow that to happen. But you asked why President Trump wants to make a deal. I would remind you, he's the master of the art of the deal. He is America's deal maker in chief. He leads from a position of securing peace through strength. And I think time and time again already, in just 4 weeks, we have seen the president being able to negotiate successful deals with our partners, our adversaries all around this world. You know, the release of Mark Fogel just last night is something that I think speaks to the president's deal-making ability. This is something that the Biden administration allegedly tried to do for 3.5 years. I think you all should go back and ask some of those Biden administration officials what they even tried to do and why weren't they successful, because for 3.5 years Mark Fogel sat in a Russian prison and it took President Trump 3 weeks to get him back on American soil. There's nobody better at making deals than Donald Trump. Phil Wegman.
Thank you. Two foreign policy questions. Ukrainian President Zelensky has said after the war that he wants NATO membership or nuclear weapons. We heard Defense Secretary Hegseth say that NATO membership was unrealistic. What's the president's view on the other option, on a nuclear Ukraine?
I have not talked to President Trump about Ukraine's NATO membership or their nuclear capabilities. I would leave it to him to discuss. But I will tell you again that Secretary Rubio and also the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will be meeting directly with President Zelensky in Munich on Friday, and I'm sure they will provide a readout of that conversation and that discussion.
And then the second question, given that this administration has called on Europe to take more responsibility for their own defense, I'm wondering, will the EU or any other European nation other than Ukraine be involved in these peace talks?
I don't have any European nations who are involved currently to read out for you. Certainly, the president has employed a very strong team or deployed a very strong team to continue these negotiations. And the fact that he was on the phone with both President Putin and President Zelensky today shows that he's very much involved in this effort as well.
And then just a follow-up, I guess.
Sure.
Should we expect the president to negotiate in person with Zelensky and Putin?
I don't have anything to read out on that for you today. Maggie, good to see you.
Thanks for taking the question. You talked about the transparency with Doge and Elon Musk's press availability yesterday. There is a conflict of interest law in place that says that people who have personal interests can't interact with government entities that could touch on those. Has President Trump signed a waiver for Elon Musk? Does such a thing exist? If it does, will you guys release it in the interest of transparency that he's committed to?
I have not seen the law that you are referring to. What I can tell you is that Elon Musk, as I've confirmed before, is a special government employee. He is filing the proper financial disclosure, and he is complying with all applicable federal laws. As you also heard Elon address this directly yesterday in the alleged conflict of interest, and he said everything he's doing is very public, and if you all perceive a conflict of interest, you're welcome to bring that up. And as the president said, if he feels like Elon is engaging in something that's a conflict of interest, he will tell Elon not to do that. And Elon also said yesterday that before he moves forward with anything, he consults with the President of the United States. So we're very confident with the ethics and the guardrails that have been put in place here. Caitlin.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a few things for you, but on the commitment by President Trump, he said that he and President Putin agreed to visit each other's respective nations. Are there any preconditions that President Trump has that President Putin must do before he goes and meets with him, withdrawing some forces, withdrawing all forces, anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but I was just talking with the president in our national security team. I wasn't made aware of any conditions, but if they exist, I'm happy to provide those.
And on the president himself, he styles himself as this master negotiator. He is now deploying these negotiations, saying that they start immediately. We did hear from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, though, today, saying that NATO membership is not realistic for Ukraine, and neither is returning to pre-2014 borders. Aren't they giving away bargaining chips before these negotiations have even started?
Again, I haven't talked to the president about Ukraine's NATO membership, and he appointed several individuals to negotiate on his behalf. He's directly involved in these negotiations as well, and I'm sure if you ask him that question in the near future, when you're able to, he'll give you an answer. I just don't want to get ahead of him on it.
And final thing for you, which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the Geographical Identification Name Server. and Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America, and it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. The prisoner exchange with Russia coming at the same time as the president is now announcing negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. The timing of that is hard to ignore. Was Ukraine discussed as part of this prisoner swap?
I was not involved in those discussions, so I can't comment on whether that came up or not. What I can say is that this was a very good deal for the United States of America and for the rest of the world. As you know, we have confirmed that the Russian who will be returning home very soon, Alexander Vinnik, was a non-violent crypto criminal, and as part of this exchange, he has forfeited more than $100 million that he obtained in that illegal crime. And in exchange, of course, we got Mark Fogel, who is a middle school teacher who kissed the American soil, but kissed the ground last night when he returned to the United States of America. It was a great deal and a great day for our country, and I think everybody, regardless of political affiliation, agrees with that.
And was Russia made aware ahead of time of the parameters that the administration and Secretary Hegseth was going to be announcing today?
The NATO perimeters? Yes. I'm not sure. You have to ask Secretary Hegseth and the Defense Department on that, since he announced them. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Just to be clear, so when we're listening for a shift in position on U.S. policy, should we only listen to the president and maybe not the Secretary of Defense? Because what he outlined today would represent a shift in U.S. policy.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I speak for the President of the United States behind this podium, and I will let him discuss that.
Can you tell us any more about the next hostage releases? I understand that Americans coming out today.
Sure. I'm glad you asked. It speaks to President Trump's deal-making ability, and we can confirm the safe release of one American and two individuals from Belarus, one of whom worked for Radio Liberty. Out of respect for the privacy of these individuals, their request, we have no further details to announce on their identities, but we can confirm that one American was released today, and it's a remarkable victory on the heels of Mark Fogel returning to America last night.
Anything on who the U.S. might be releasing in exchange?
I don't have details on that at this moment.
Anyone in exchange?
I don't have details on that at this moment. I do know that these three individuals have been released and are on their way home to their respective countries. Ouija.
Caroline, thank you so much. Can you explain how President Trump envisions the war in Russia and Ukraine coming to an end? Does he expect Ukraine to hand over all the territory in question?
Again, these negotiations are ongoing. I will allow the president to divulge any red lines that he may set, but I think as deals in the past have come to fruition, the president has proven one of the things that makes him a very effective negotiator is not revealing what he's anticipating from both sides, but he is at the forefront of these negotiations in addition to the very qualified individuals who he's tasked with speaking to both President Putin and President Zelensky.
And speaking of deals, a meeting with the President of the United States offers any foreign leader credibility. Was it part of the prisoner swap with Fogel that President Trump agreed to meet with Putin?
Again, I was already asked this question. I said I was not made aware of that, but we can certainly get you an answer on that. I'll check in with the NSC. Sure, Monica.
Thanks, Caroline. It's clear that this administration is dedicated to both truth and transparency. We know that with Doge, but we also know that because this administration recently announced it's going to declassify the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr., JFK, and RFK. I'm wondering, is it likely that we're going to see more information regarding the assassination attempts on the president's life while he was on the campaign trail?
In regards to the assassination of the individuals you mentioned, President Trump signed that executive order directing the respective agencies to do it. I know that that process continues and is ongoing. He's committed to transparency in the declassification of these very important files that I think many Americans are not only interested in learning about, but also have the right to know about. As for the two heinous assassination attempts on the president's life, he's spoken to this publicly. I've spoken to him about it privately, and as he said publicly to all of you, he feels he has a right to know about further information about the individuals who tried to kill him, tried to take his life. And so, if and when we get that information, I'll leave it up to the president to decide whether or not he would like to reveal it. But I believe in the effort of transparency that we've seen consistently from this president, he certainly will. Daniel.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask you about the $59 million that FEMA sent to New York City migrant hotels. Secretary Kristi Noem just put out a statement saying that she's clawed back the full payment that FEMA activists unilaterally gave to NYC migrant hotels. She wrote, "Mark my words, there will not be a single penny spent that goes against the interest and safety of the American people." What does the response of the Trump administration send to any federal bureaucrats that are thinking about obstructing the president's agenda?
They will be held accountable. The president is signing executive orders daily, and he expects all officials across the administration, regardless if they are a political appointee or if they are a career bureaucrat, to adhere to the will of the American people and the 77 million Americans who re-elected President Trump. He's here for a reason, and he is focused every day on implementing his administration's goals, and sending $59 million to a migrant hotel to house illegal immigrants when there are still people in North Carolina and California who have not received FEMA funding is not something that this administration is going to tolerate. Deanna.
Thank you so much, Caroline. One on New York and one Russia, please. On New York City Comptroller Brad Lander is accusing DOJ of clawing back $80 million that was intended for New York City FEMA funding. Wondering if you've heard about that figure, if that figure is accurate, and why that money was taken back.
I have not heard about that figure. DOJ is moving very quickly, but I can get the receipts and gladly send them to you. I know that story is likely of great interest to the New York Post. John.
Russia, please. Is President Trump waiting for a kind of signal or an action from Putin to go to Russia? And would he be willing to go to Ukraine in the future?
I don't have any decisions to make on the president's potential visit to Russia or any in-person meeting at this time. John.
Caroline, two questions, one on foreign policy, one on domestic policy. Following up on the president's call that he had with President Putin, does the president view Russia, does he view President Putin as an ally, as a partner, as a competitor, or as an adversary?
I believe this nation views Putin and Russia as a great competitor in the region, at times an adversary, but as the president has said as well, he enjoys having good diplomatic relationships with leaders around the world, finding that common ground, also calling them out when they are wrong, and leading from a position of peace through strength. That's the president's greatest strength, and we've seen that again, time and time again.
And then, as you pointed out in your statement regarding the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard, there was one Republican who voted against the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard. It was Senator Mitch McConnell. Similarly, how does the administration view Senator McConnell? Can he be a partner in the president's legislative agenda? Are you disappointed that he voted against not only Tulsi Gabbard, but also Pete Hegseth to be the defense secretary?
I think we're greatly disappointed in any Republican who chooses willfully to vote against the president's exceptionally qualified cabinet nominees and picks to lead his America First administration. Not a single Democrat swayed from voting against President Biden's nominees, and we know how many of them turned out. They turned out to be atrocious at their jobs, leaving America much worse than they were when they took the oath of office. And so I've said it repeatedly from this podium. I addressed it at the beginning of my remarks. We expect all Republicans to vote, to stay tough and strong, vote for President Trump's nominees so we can get to work and continue to work very hard to implement this president's agenda. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. On South Korea is currently in a chaotic situation. How does the President Trump react to the current chaotic situation in South Korea? Secondly, if South Korea needs help from the United States, what role do you think the U.S. will play?
Sure. I haven't spoken to the president about the ongoing situation in South Korea. I would defer you to his previous statements. And I can also see if I can get you something new from the National Security Council, who I'm very confident the officials that are focused on South Korea are on this. I just haven't spoken to them about it, but I'm happy to provide that for you. Yes.
Thank you, Caroline. Does Elon Musk have power of the presidency?
Absolutely not.
Right. I asked that
question.
I asked that question because, the Democrats have been hurling insults at Elon Musk, hurling attacks, calling him President Musk. Most recently, Jamie Raskin, the congressman, took it a step further, calling for Musk's impeachment, saying that he somehow usurped the power of the presidency. What's your response?
It's utterly ridiculous. Elon Musk addressed this in the Oval Office yesterday. The president addressed it as well. Elon Musk is serving at the pleasure of the president, just like everybody else on this team. He takes directives directly from the president of the United States. And I think some of the comments that you referred to are nothing more than a failed attempt from the media and from Democrats to try to sow division in this White House. We saw them do it in the first term. We're not going to let them do it in the second term. This is a unified team who is working at the pleasure of the president to do what's right for the American people. I have one more quick housekeeping note before I leave you all today. The president wanted me to share with all of you that he had a wonderful meeting with King Abdullah of Jordan yesterday. They discussed many things, including the Gaza Strip and its future at great length. The king would much prefer that the Palestinians stay in place, with the additional land to be used for new development, which would greatly create jobs at levels never seen before. But the president feels it would be much better and more majestic if these Palestinians could be moved to safer areas. I would just add to that the president remains wholeheartedly committed to seeing peace in the Middle East, and our Arab partners in the region have been tasked with coming up with a peace plan to present to the president. That is ongoing. King Abdullah mentioned that yesterday. He also committed to accepting 2,000 sick children from the Gaza Strip, which the president called a beautiful gesture. So the administration continues to work with our Arab partners in the region. We stand closely with our ally Israel, and the president has presented this big, new, bold idea to secure peace in the Middle East, and he is not going to waver from that. And we look forward to seeing that goal of this administration achieved as well. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you very soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
C-SPAN, Democracy Unfiltered.